What is your relationship with your own anger? Do you fear it? Suppress it? Judge it as unspiritual or unprofessional? We have been taught that anger is a dangerous fire that must be extinguished at all costs. But what if that is a profound lie? What if your anger, in its purest form, is not a fire of destruction, but a brilliant, clean-burning flame of truth? A sacred signal that a boundary has been crossed and your soul is saying no. Your depression might be the weight of your anger turned inward. Your anxiety might be the frantic energy of your anger with nowhere to go. I used to be a chronic people pleaser. I thought being angry made me a bad person. So I swallowed my nose, smiled through discomfort, and ended up feeling resentful, exhausted, and profoundly empty. My healing began with the terrifying, liberating realization that my depression was a mountain of unexpressed, righteous anger. In our time together today, we will embark on a radical act of shadow work. We will reclaim one of the most vital and misunderstood of all human emotions. Drawing from the wisdom of Carl Jung, we will explore the crucial difference between toxic, reactive rage and the life-giving force of sacred anger. How your repressed anger becomes the source of your greatest suffering, and how to befriend this fire, not to burn the world down, but to illuminate the path back to your own self-respect. This is not a video about learning to fight. It is a video about learning to finally, without guilt, stand your ground. This is your permission slip to reclaim your fire. Your niceness may be the most violent thing you do. This sounds like a contradiction, but it is a profound psychological truth. For those of us who identify as nice people, as people pleasers, we have been conditioned to believe that anger is the ultimate sin. From a very early age, we learned that our anger was dangerous. It led to disapproval. It led to conflict. It led to the withdrawal of love. So we made a choice, a subconscious survival decision. We took our anger, this vital, life-preserving energy, and we locked it away in the deepest dungeon of our psyche. We exiled it into our shadow. We built a persona of agreeableness, of helpfulness, of being easygoing. We became experts at swallowing our no, at smiling through discomfort, at putting everyone else's needs before our own. We thought this was the path to love and acceptance. We thought this was the definition of being a good person. But this niceness is a performance, and it is an incredibly costly one. As we've explored before, maintaining a persona that is disconnected from your authentic self is the most energy-intensive work a human can do. The constant suppression of your truth leads to a deep, soul-level exhaustion. But it is more insidious than just that. The act of suppressing your anger is an act of violence against yourself. Every time a boundary is crossed and you say nothing, you are telling yourself, my needs do not matter. Every time you swallow your truth to keep the peace, you are telling yourself, your voice is not important. This is not kindness. This is slow-motion self-annihilation. This is the collapse of the achievement-based model of being good. You thought that by achieving the status of the nice one, you would find peace and belonging. But instead, you have found a quiet prison of resentment and a profound sense of powerlessness. The very strategy you used to gain love has robbed you of your own life force. And this is where we must make a crucial distinction, a distinction that is at the very heart of this work. The anger you are afraid of, the explosive, destructive, out-of-control force, is not true anger. That is rage. Rage is what happens when authentic anger has been suppressed for too long. It is the pressure cooker exploding. It is the caged animal finally breaking free. Rage is unconscious, reactive, and often disproportionate to the situation. It is the toxic byproduct of repression, and this is what we all fear. But there is another kind of anger. Let us call it sacred anger. Sacred anger is not an explosion. It is a clean, clear, focused fire. It is conscious. It is responsive, not reactive. Its purpose is not to destroy, but to protect. Its goal is not to harm, but to clarify. Rage is a forest fire, burning everything in its path. Sacred anger is a laser beam, cutting through confusion with absolute precision. I spent most of my life terrified of the forest fire, so I refused to even light a single candle. I associated any flicker of anger with the destructive rage I had witnessed as a child. So I became a master of suppression. My persona was the calm, reasonable, understanding one. But inside, a silent resentment was building. A low-grade depression settled over my life like a fog. I felt a profound sense of being a victim, of being powerless against the demands of the world. My healing did not begin by trying to be even nicer. It began when I had the courage to admit that beneath my depression was a deep, cold, and utterly terrifying reservoir of anger. Learning to sit with that energy, to feel it in my body without acting on it, was the start of a revolution. I began to realize this energy wasn't a monster. It was a guardian, a fierce, loyal protector of my own soul that I had abandoned at his post. This is the great reframing. Your anger is not a moral failing. It is a biological and spiritual guidance system, and its job is simple and sacred. Anger is the body's truth teller. It is the primal, energetic response to a boundary violation. It is the physiological alarm bell that rings when your integrity is threatened, your values are being compromised, or your soul's truth is being denied. It is the energy that fuels the word no. Without conscious access to your sacred anger, you cannot set a healthy boundary. You cannot protect your time, your energy, or your own well-being. You become a permeable membrane, allowing the needs and demands of the world to flow in and out of you, leaving you drained and empty. To be a person without access to their anger is to be a kingdom without walls, a house without a door. You are defenseless. Pause here for a moment. Think of one small resentment you are holding right now. What is the boundary that was crossed? What was the no that was left unspoken? Recognizing that unspoken no is the first step to reclaiming your fire. When we understand that anger's true job is to protect our boundaries, we can finally see why suppressing it is so devastating. When this powerful, life-preserving energy is not allowed to move outward to say no to the world, it does not disappear, it turns inward and begins to attack the self. This is the secret of our suffering.
Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. When you take the powerful, fiery energy of sacred anger and you refuse to let it move outward to protect the boundary, you are performing a dangerous act of internal alchemy. You are turning a life-preserving force into a self-destructive poison. The anger does not disappear. It simply goes underground. It mutates, and it begins to attack the host system, you. Let's look at the primary symptoms of this repressed, shadowed anger. The first and most common mutation is depression. The classic definition of depression is anger turned inward. Think about the sheer life force of anger. It is an energy that wants to move, to push back, to declare, this is not okay. When you consistently deny this energy its outward expression, you are essentially aiming that powerful fire hose back at your own soul. The result is a drenching, heavy, soul-crushing exhaustion. The feeling of hopelessness that is so characteristic of depression is the logical conclusion of a psyche that has learned it is not allowed to fight for itself. If you cannot say no to the world, you begin to feel profoundly powerless, and a prolonged state of powerlessness is the very definition of depression. Your lack of energy is not a biochemical accident. It is the energetic cost of holding a nuclear reactor of unexpressed anger contained within your own being. The second mutation is anxiety. If depression is the weight of anger turned inward, anxiety is the frantic, buzzing energy of anger with nowhere to go. It is the vibration of a caged animal constantly pacing back and forth. It is the steam building up in a sealed pressure cooker. This is a state of hypervigilance. Your body's alarm system has been triggered. A boundary has been crossed, but you have given it no instructions. You have not allowed it to fight or to flee, so it just rings constantly. This creates that familiar low-grade hum of anxiety, the feeling that something is always wrong, the inability to ever fully relax. You are living with a fire alarm that you refuse to acknowledge is even ringing. The exhaustion that comes with anxiety is the exhaustion of being in a constant low-level state of emergency. Your psyche is perpetually braced for an impact that your conscious mind is pretending is not happening. The third mutation is passive aggression. Anger will always find a way out. If you do not allow it to exit through the front door as a clean, clear boundary, it will seep out through the cracks in the foundation. This is passive aggression. It is the sarcasm that is disguised as a joke. It is forgetting to do the thing you resentfully agreed to do. It is showing up late. It is the silent treatment. Each of these is a small, unconscious act of protest. It is your exiled anger, your disowned no, leaking out sideways. The problem is that it is an ineffective and confusing form of communication. It creates conflict without creating clarity. You get all the negative consequences of an argument without any of the potential for resolution. It slowly poisons the well of your relationships, creating an atmosphere of mistrust and resentment. And finally, there is the language we explored in our last conversation. When all other channels are blocked, anger will speak through the body. The tension headaches, the clenched jaw and TMJ, the tight shoulders, the chronic inflammation and autoimmune issues. The body becomes the battlefield for the war you are refusing to fight in your own life. The fire that was meant to protect your kingdom on the outside begins to burn down the village on the inside. Pause here and be honest with yourself. Which of these symptoms do you recognize in your own life? The heavy blanket of depression? The constant buzz of anxiety? The sideways sting of passive aggression? In the comments, simply write the name of the one that resonates most. This is an act of courageous self-diagnosis. To see these symptoms not as personal flaws, but as the logical consequences of a lifetime of suppressing a vital emotion is a radical act of self-compassion. It is the beginning of the path home. It moves us from a place of shame to a place of curiosity. It moves us from the question, "What is wrong with me?" to the question, "What is my anger trying to tell me?" This is the great reframing. Your symptoms are not the problem. They are a map pointing directly to the exiled guardian of your soul. The work now is not to fix the symptoms. The work is to follow the map, to walk back into the shadow, and to finally have a conversation with the part of you have been running from your entire life. But how do we do that safely? How do we befriend this fire without getting burned? To befriend your anger is not to give it permission to run your life. It is to finally give yourself permission to listen to its wisdom. This is a delicate and courageous dance. It is the art of shadow work in its most potent form. It requires us to move from unconscious suppression to conscious engagement. And this journey has a clear, safe path. It begins not with expression, but with awareness. The first step is to grant permission and practice somatic awareness. For a lifetime, you have had an automatic internal sensor that shuts down anger the moment it arises. Your first job is to gently fire that sensor. You must make a conscious decision to allow the feeling of anger to exist. The next time you feel a flicker of irritation, of annoyance, of resentment, instead of immediately swallowing it or judging it, I invite you to pause and bring your awareness into your body. Where do you feel it? Is it a heat in your chest, a clenching in your jaw, a tightening in your fists? You don't have to do anything about it. You are simply noticing. You are saying to this exiled part of you, "Ah, there you are. I see you. You are allowed to be here." The simple act of acknowledgement is profoundly healing. It ends the inner war of suppression. The second step is to listen for the no. Once you have located the anger in your body, you can begin to translate its message. Ask the anger a simple, direct question, either in your journal or in your mind. What boundary was just crossed? Or more simply, what is the no that wants to be said here? Listen for the answer. The answer is often surprisingly clear and simple. No, I do not have the energy to do that favor. No, that comment was not okay with me. No, I will not continue this conversation while you are yelling. This step moves the anger from a chaotic, frightening energy into clear, actionable intelligence. You are discovering the precise location where your soul's integrity has been compromised. You are finding the exact place on the map where the wall of your kingdom needs to be built. The third, and often overlooked step, is to find a safe discharge. Anger is a physical, biological energy. It floods your system with adrenaline and cortisol. Before you can communicate a boundary clearly, you often need to move this intense energy out of your body in a safe, non-harmful way. If you try to speak from the peak of that energetic wave, you risk slipping from sacred anger into reactive rage. So you must find a way to discharge the raw energy first. This could be vigorous exercise. Go for a hard run. Hit a punching bag. It could be screaming into a pillow. It could be what some therapists call rage journaling, where you take a pen and paper and write down everything you are feeling, completely uncensored, and then safely tear up or burn the paper afterwards. The point is to separate the energy of the anger from the message of the anger. You honor the energy by moving it. Then you can honor the message by communicating it. This leads us to the culmination of this work, wielding the sword of clarity. This is the art of the clean boundary. A clean boundary is not an attack. It is not a demand. It is a clear, calm, and firm declaration of your own reality. It comes not from a place of rage, but from a place of deep self-respect. The formula for a clean boundary is simple. When you do this specific, observable behavior, I feel this specific emotion. What I need is this clear, actionable request. Let's see it in action. Instead of passive aggression, fine, I'll just do everything by myself as usual. A clean boundary sounds like this. When you leave your dishes in the sink, I feel disrespected and taken for granted. What I need is for us to share the responsibility of cleaning up. Instead of suppression, saying nothing when a friend makes a hurtful joke, a clean boundary sounds like this. When you make jokes about my career choice, I feel hurt and dismissed. What I need is for you to stop making those kinds of jokes. Notice there is no blame. There is no attack. You are not saying you are a bad person. You are saying this specific behavior has this specific impact on me.
And this is what I need to feel safe and respected in this relationship. This is you, wielding your sacred anger not as a club to beat someone with, but as a sword of light to draw a clear, bright line in the sand. This is the act of a sovereign adult. This is the ultimate expression of self-love.
Today, we have walked into the fire, and we have discovered that it is not a fire of destruction, but the brilliant, sacred fire of our own truth. We have deconstructed the great myth that has kept so many of us powerless and resentful, the myth that anger is a flaw. We have learned to distinguish between the toxic reactive poison of rage born of suppression and the clean, life-affirming energy of sacred anger, born of self-respect. This is the heart of reclaiming your shadow. We have diagnosed the symptoms of our repressed anger, the heavy blanket of depression, the frantic buzz of anxiety, and the slow poison of passive aggression. We have seen these not as personal failings, but as the logical consequences of exiling a vital part of ourselves. And most importantly, we have been given a safe and practical path to befriend this fire. A path of conscious engagement, not suppression. First, to give ourselves permission and listen to the wisdom of our bodies. Second, to decode the message of the anger by listening for the unspoken no. Third, to find a safe discharge for the raw energy. And finally, to wield the sword of clarity by speaking a clean, clear, and respectful boundary. The journey of befriending your anger is the journey of reclaiming your own voice, your own worth, your own sacred no. It is not a path to becoming a more aggressive person. It is the path to becoming a more authentic one. A person who can be both compassionate and clear. A person whose kindness is a genuine choice, not a fearful obligation. A person who is no longer at war with themselves and can therefore, finally, be at peace with the world. Learning to work with the fire of our sacred anger prepares us for the greater alchemical tasks of life. It gives us the strength and the clarity to face the inevitable mud of our existence, our failures, our heartbreaks, our losses, our deepest suffering. But how do we transform this mud? How do we find the meaning and the wisdom hidden in our darkest times? How do we, as the ancient proverb says, grow the lotus from the mud? That is the profound and beautiful alchemy we will explore together in our next conversation. For this week, your work is not to become an expert at setting boundaries. It is simply to become an anger detective. I invite you to a small act of compassionate awareness. Your only job is to notice the smallest flickers of irritation or resentment in your day. You don't have to act on them. You don't have to express them. You don't even have to understand them fully. Just notice. And when you notice, pause and privately, gently ask yourself, what is the no that wants to be said here? This simple act of listening is the beginning of a revolution. It is the first step in reclaiming your sacred power, your voice, and your fire. To commit to this act of reclamation, I invite you to declare your intention in the comments below. Simply write, "I am reclaiming my fire." Let this be a collective roar, the sound of thousands of quiet guardians finally returning to their post. The fire is not your enemy.
It is your oldest and most loyal friend.